We will be looking at expanding single brackets. So before we start, we need to remember the rules that we have when we are multiplying out negative and positive integers. So just to start off, so say we had -2 times a +3, we will have an answer of -6, because when you multiply a negative number and a positive number, you will get an answer that is negative. Again, if we had, say, 2 times -3, so we are multiplying a positive number and a negative number, we will get an answer of -6. When we are multiplying two negative numbers, that's -2 times -3, we will get an answer that is positive, so we will have +6. And if we had two positive numbers that we are multiplying, we will have a positive answer, and in this case it will be just 6. So these are the 4 rules that we need to remember when we are multiplying integers. So before we move on, I want you to pause the video and practice the questions that are on your screen. So pause the video now. Okay, answers are going to be on your screen. So mark what you have done. And we are going to move on to expanding brackets. Before we get on to some problems with expanding brackets, we need to remember that when you are expanding brackets, you are getting rid of the brackets, but we don't just remove the brackets out of the question. You need to multiply whatever's on the outside of that single bracket by everything that is on the inside, and we do that one by one. Because we are multiplying integers, we will have some negative numbers that we need to deal with. We need to remember those rules for multiplying integers. So that's for positive and negative numbers. So starting with this example, we have 3 on the outside of the bracket and we have 2x plus 4 on the inside of the bracket. I will be looking at a few examples visually. So in order to do that, we need to all be aware of the notation that I will be using. So I am going to be using tiles. So on the outside of the bracket we have 3, and I will be representing that as 3 tiles of 1s. On the inside of the bracket we have 2x, and that would be represented as 2 tiles of x's. And we have 4, so plus 4, we will represent that as 4 tiles of 1s. Could have negative numbers as well, so if we had -2, we would represent that as 2 tiles of -1s. And again, if that was a -2x, we would represent that as 2 tiles of -x's. So moving on now, we have this problem, and we can set up our grid and start to place our tiles. So for 3, we'll have 3 tiles of 1s. Then we have 2x plus 4 in the brackets, so you have 2 tiles of x's and 4 tiles of 1s. So now all we are going to do is multiply out what we have set up. So we have x times 1, which is x times 1 again, which is x, and we are going to fill out the 2 columns since they will all be the same. Now the final 4 columns, you have 1 times 1, which will give you an answer of 1, and we have 1 times 1 again, which will give you an answer of 1, and we are going to fill that out again. Now we have the table filled down. All we are going to do is collect the like terms. So starting off with the x's, we have 6 x's here, so we are going to write that as 6x. Now looking at the final 4 columns, we have 1s here. Counting those up, you will have 12 1s, and we are going to write that as plus 12. So your final answer, when you were expanding brackets for this problem, you will have an answer of 6x plus 12. Moving on now, this is slightly different because we have negative numbers, but we are still going to follow the same process. So we set up our grid. Outside of the bracket we have -4, so we are going to have 4 tiles of -1s. Inside of the bracket you have -4x plus 3, so we will have 4 tiles of -x's and 3 tiles of 1s. So now what we are going to do is multiply out what we have set up. So -1 times -x, we are multiplying 2 negative numbers, which will give us a positive number. So that will give us positive 1x, but we don't write 1x in algebra, we just write x. So we are going to write x. Again, we have the same thing, -1 times -x, which gives an answer of x. So for the first 4 columns, they are all the same, so we're just going to quickly fill that out. So I'm just going to partition that very quickly, just so it's a little bit neater. Now moving on, we have -1 times 1. We are multiplying a negative number and a positive number, which will give us a negative number. So we will have an answer of -1. And we will have the same for the remaining spaces as well. So we still have -1 times 1. So we are going to fill that out. So now we have our table filled out. We are going to do the exact same thing where we collect our like terms. We're going to start off with the x's first. So adding all of that up, that's 4, 8, 12, 16. So we will have the first term as 16x. And then we are going to count up our -1s. So counting all of that up, you will have an answer of -12. The final part of this will be -12. So when you are expanding this bracket, your final answer will be 16x, take away 12. So now looking at a third example, we're going to be looking at it slightly different. So this can be written as 3 lots of 5 minus 2b's. So we can set this up as having 3 lots of 5 minus 2b. As so, the blue part we could represent as 15 and the orange part can be represented as -6b. So changing that, this is how we can represent it. And now all we do is put this together, so it'll be 15, take away 6b, and that is your final answer. So that's a different way to represent it. Since we are expanding brackets, we are multiplying whatever's in the outside of the bracket by everything that is inside of the bracket one by one. So we could just say that it's 3 lots of 5, take away 2b's, and this is another way that you could set this up. Now a final example that we are going to look at is -7 with 2x plus 4y inside the bracket. So as we established, when we are expanding brackets, we are multiplying whatever's in the outside of the bracket by everything on the inside of the bracket one by one. So starting off with the first term, so we've got -7 times 2x, which will give us an answer of -14x. And now the final term, so let me just quickly rub it out. And the final term now, we have -7 times 4y. So we've got an addition here, so I'm going to carry the addition through. -7 times 4y, which will give us an answer of -28y. We're not finished yet, so because we have an addition and subtraction right next to each other, we are going to change that to just a takeaway, so a subtraction, and our answer will be -14x, take away 28y. So with these rules, we need to remember, if we have an addition and addition next to each other, that will just be an addition. If we have subtraction next to each other, again, that will just be changed to addition. If we have an addition and a subtraction next to each other, that will be subtraction. And if we have a subtraction and an addition next to each other, that will be a subtraction as well. So these are a second set of rules to remember that are different to the multiplication ones that we had earlier. So because in this one we had a positive and we had addition and subtraction next to each other, while addition and we had the negative, so we are going to change that to just a takeaway. So now what I want you to do is pause this video and I want you to try these 6 questions on your screen now. So pause the video. The answers are now appearing on your screen, so my video's done. Right, so now moving on. Questions have been set for you on MathsWatch. So for this video, on MathsWatch, it is the first one that's been set. So it's lesson 3.1, expanding circle brackets, and it's part 1. So there's a few questions on there. I want you to go ahead and practice those questions. It won't take too long. And I will be keeping up with the progress that you have made on those. And the second video will be moving on to part 2 of expanding brackets.